Welcome to Project 122 for the Fight Food Waste Cooperative Research Centre. This video presentation has been prepared by Madison Ryder and Linda Brennan on behalf of the investigatory team. The Consumer Perceptions of the Role of Packaging in Reducing Food Waste project has been underway since 2019, and this video presents the outcomes of the packaging design phase. This phase was built on the outcomes of previous research with consumers. These reports are all available from the Fight Food Waste CRC website. All references to consumer research in this presentation are to the consumer research from Project 122. This video will take you through suggestions for packaging designs that consumers and packaging designers believe will resolve issues with food waste. This research is conducted through RMIT University and supported by industry stakeholders, Sustainability Victoria and Woolworths for the Fight Food Waste 122 project, and the Australian Institute of Packaging for the Fight Food Waste CRC 121 project. The research and studies referenced in this presentation are sourced from these two research projects. This research into the consumer acceptability of packaging design is a module that builds on our previous research, and the link to the Fight Food Waste CRC site is available on this slide. Food loss and waste has a global impact, and we are working towards reducing that impact through the consumer end of the research. We have been going now for over 4 years, and the entirety of our research is into consumer perceptions and the role of packaging in reducing food waste. A project of this size is inevitably undertaken by many people. The contributors for this module of the project have been from across a number of universities, disciplines and schools within RMIT University. Maddie Ryder and Simon Lockery led the design component, and Linda Brennan led the consumer research component, with of course a lot of assistance from the rest of the team. Project 122 is focused on industry and consumer perceptions of primary packaging that is used within the home and consumer environment. The 5 categories represent the various supply chains, both fresh and frozen, perishables and long-life products, and they also represent the divergent packaging formats with unique requirements. These 5 food categories were determined in an industry think tank in 2018 as the key foci of the research in this project. The methodology used for the packaging design was one of double diamond design research methods. More information about the methods applied in this research can be found in our book chapter on the topic. Check out the Fight Food Waste CRC website and our Scholar Google or ResearchGate profile pages for links to any articles on this topic. Most are free access and freely available. The methodology chapter is entitled The Wicked Problem of Packaging and Consumers: Innovative Approaches for Sustainability Research. The double diamond approach is used in design research to ensure that multiple user-centered design perspectives are built into the design process. The diamond is a process of divergent and convergent designing that finds the middle ground between consumer needs and wants and industry capacity to respond to these needs. These designs have been informed by a series of formative research steps which have been reported on the Fight Food Waste CRC site under Project 122. Taking the formative research, the design team met to categorize the priorities and ideate alternative designs using a matrix of best practice packaging design ideas. The matrix was created based on a scholarly literature review into packaging design theories as they relate to food and consumer preferences. The following stages involved creation of prototypes and testing of consumer preferences for the designs. The results of the prototyping research were fed forward into an online consumer research stage and a think tank with industry stakeholders to assess the potential for adoption. An additional stage of research involved assessment by practicing packaging designers. The final designs were then concept tested with consumers in a series of focus groups. The results of this research are presented in this presentation. There is still work to be done regarding the packaging design options, but this presentation will walk you through the options and their relative strengths and weaknesses according to our research. The packaged and processed food category is one of the key areas of food waste in Australia. The category contains the largest number of products, ranging from products such as manufactured milks, such as almond milk, through oils, herbs and spices to canned fruit and vegetables. The design matrix will be published in the future, but for simplicity, if you want to understand the criteria for packaging, we refer you to a foundational article by Arzi et al. 2012 entitled Packaging Design, General Framework and Research Agenda. The first type of package was nuts, and for this one we used almonds. One of the issues faced by consumers was that the Ziplocs are not actually zips and are merely reseals. This means that products such as almonds degrade because the seal is not completely airtight. The transparent packaging is attractive to consumers who want to see the quality and quantity of the product. Consumers are happy to be advised as to how to extend the life of the package. Contents. This package design is based on responding to consumer desires for honest, truthful and comprehensible information. The plastic is recyclable and is intended to come in an appropriate serving size for family consumption. In this case we chose 300 grams. The freshest by label is designed to let people know that it is okay to eat after that date so as to limit the potential for wasted food. For cornflakes and cereals, one of the consumer concerns was that the product, once opened, goes stale and it absorbs moisture while it's in its original packaging. Many consumers in our research decant their cereals into plastic containers in order to extend its shelf life. One of the design options we came up with was a sticky resealable inner packaging. However, consumers didn't think this was a promising idea as it would not work as well as a proper Ziploc. They were also concerned about the potential expense of a Ziploc. While the consumer research indicated that windows into the products were desirable because they could assess the integrity of the product inside the packaging, for cornflakes this was not a concern. The bigger concern was the ability for the product to be tampered with. Given that cereals tend to be used by unsupervised children, integrity was a key issue to consider. Consumers also expressed a willingness to engage with recipes and online options to extend the use of the product in order to decrease food waste. They suggested that quick response codes would be helpful if available. The chutney and preserves category was a design winner with a ready with minor tweaks rating. Consumers thought the easy-to-peel label idea was good for those intending to reuse the jar, and most thought the jar was attractive enough that reuse was desirable. The minor tweak suggested was that consumers do not need to know how to reuse a jar. What they wanted instead was recipe ideas for how you would use the product if not spreading onto a sandwich. The pesto bottle produced a needs a rethink rating because the squeezy bottle was not new or innovative. While consumers did like the idea of pesto being in a squeeze bottle, they did not like the shape of the lid because they felt it would not reduce waste. In fact, squeeze bottles are difficult to empty in general, and people find that at least 10% is wasted regardless of what type of food is in it. The type of plastic used was a key contributor to this perception, with the harder plastics being less desirable because of difficulty in emptying the bottle. The final packaged and processed food category was tinned tuna. This category was also in need of a rethink because people did not want a reclosable lid, even though previous phases of research suggested that this might be an innovative idea to save waste. The rationale underpinning this choice was that tuna comes in sufficiently small quantities that reclosing is not required. If the reclose option was to be available, it would be for larger portions only. Important to this packaging design is the idea that people do not think storing the open product in the tin is safe for the food. They would decant the product into some other form of glass or plastic container instead. Bakery products are one of the most wasted product categories in Australia. The bakery category includes baked goods such as bread, cakes and muffins, biscuits, wraps, rolls and flatbreads, amongst other types of baked produce. The consumer research showed that there's a lot of potential to reduce waste in this category by changing serving size availability to match household needs and wants. A majority of existing waste in this category is due to packaging size availability not matching changing demographics and household usage patterns. The bread category was given a rating of ready with minor tweaks. The The most highlighted suggestion was that current large loaves of bread be available in smaller half-size packages. People would be okay with split loaves instead of whole loaves for this idea. That is, they'd skip the crust to reduce food waste. Consumers wanted to see the expiry date on the package itself because they throw those little tags away as soon as they open the package in any case. The tags are usually replaced with some other sort of packaging sealing device like a plastic clip. Consumers particularly liked the tips for freezing and squeezing as a means of reducing food waste. They also liked the how to recycle the packaging being on the packaging as well. The cake packaging design was in need of further refinement too. So, not quite a rethink, but it is not acceptable in its present form. The larger sticker branding and labelling the cake was a factor in this perception, with people not liking the fact that they couldn't see the cake. The date mark language was problematic too, in that people are used to expiry, use by, and other standard forms of indicating when the product is good to eat, and so they were uncomfortable with the alternative wording. A suggestion was that some kind of freshness indicator might be better. However, while intelligent technology is available, consumers haven't seen it on packaging as yet, and so they are unfamiliar and unable to suggest alternatives. The ridged packaging was also seen as a benefit, but this wasn't new or innovative to consumers. The biscuits packaging was set to go with minor tweaks as far as the consumers were concerned. The idea of being able to reseal the packaging was particularly desirable, as was the idea that the package could be opened easily. Biscuit packaging is often torn so completely on opening that the biscuits can't be left in the packaging if they're not eaten at once. This then means that the biscuits are decanted and inevitable breakage of the biscuits take place while in the decanted package. While some people will eat broken biscuits, most would prefer to have whole biscuits instead. The donuts package was also ready with minor tweaks. The date mark language was familiar and useful in terms of consumers understanding how to assess whether the contents of the package was edible. The idea of what to do with the food to refresh or use after the optimal date was also seen as positive, especially the playful tone of the messaging. The ridged plastic packaging was seen as a good option for keeping the product fresh for longer. The tortilla wrap packaging was well accepted by consumers. The scissor line was deemed helpful, as were the instructions on how to extend the life of the product. Tinkering with the language of best before or use by saying freshest by was reported to be unhelpful. People wanted to see that the date mark language was consistent with other more familiar labelling. The issue of familiarity with existing labels will form the basis of future research because any changes are likely to add significantly to the existing confusion. Dairy and eggs are an important category of waste. Dairy by itself makes up a considerable portion of food waste in Australia. Eggs are not dairy, of course, but they're often counted together in the statistics related to food waste, so they added to the category for the purposes of this research. Dairy includes milk from animals, cheese, cream and yogurt, as well as butter and ghee. It does not include margarine, which is counted in the packaged and processed food statistics. The first product in this category is the brie and blue cheese combination pack. Consumers felt that this was too much packaging for the product and raised concerns for the environment. On average, throughout Project 122, consumers would prefer to take the risk of increasing food waste rather than increase the amount and type of packaging. They do not take the potential for food waste into account when purchasing products, and they do take the potential for environmental harms into account. Consumers would prefer smaller servings of the product purchased separately rather than a combination pack. A cream cheese tub that is easy to open and store in the fridge was seen as convenient and helpful. The idea that the consumer could use the cream cheese as a spread or for cooking from the same tub was also considered to be a useful attribute. Consumers thought that the more effort needed to be put into labelling the product as spreadable. The resealability was the main focus of the labelling, and consumers felt that the style of tub made the resealable label redundant. The eggs packaging was seen as ready with minor tweaks. Consumers liked the communication about freshness and floating, adding that this tip was not always known and younger consumers would not know about that at all. Consumers also liked the strong packaging, as many eggs don't make the trip home very well. even if they survived the check while in the supermarket aisle. The large overhanging lid was seen as a great idea as it allowed for checking the eggs without having to struggle with the lid. This package was reported to be very practical compared to existing package designs. The shredded cheese packaging was in need of further refinement. Consumers didn't like the idea of no Ziploc, even on a relatively smaller pack size. Firstly, consumers have come to expect soft packaging of bulk goods to come with a resealable function. Secondly, they will search for and buy resealable packaging instead where it's available, even if it is more expensive. Consumers did point out that they would like to see smaller package sizes for smaller household sizes. They thought that the idea of being told where to store the package in the fridge as unnecessary. They felt that most people would already know that. One suggestion was that fridges could come with a shelf especially designed for soft packaging to be stored in. The sour cream packaging was a success in that consumers found the innovations quite helpful as ideas. The ability to measure the cups available and to use would translate well into recipes and serving size calculations for those watching what they eat. The clear packaging allowed people to see how much was left in the pack and to assess whether it was edible or not, no mold, and so on. The easy opening resealable lid was also seen as useful. Older people in particular liked this feature as it would reduce the risks of spillage on opening. The fresh fruit and vegetables category includes all types of fruit and vegetables, as well as fresh herbs and spices, fresh nuts and pulses, and fresh legumes. It also includes salad vegetables. It does not include dried fruits or vegetables or dried pulses and legumes. Consumers felt that buying a cut-up apple was lazy and they probably wouldn't buy it. The suggestion was that buying smaller apples would be more beneficial for the environment and wouldn't need packaging at all. However, that said, consumers found the recyclable packaging attractive. Consumers also liked the specification of what nutrients were in the apples, and they would like to see more of this type of thing on packaged fresh food. Technically, frozen peas belong in the packaged and processed category. However, they were included here because this is how consumers see that frozen peas get used as fresh peas. While people like the line showing where to cut the package for opening and the reseal sticker idea, they didn't like the pea monster idea at all. They felt that peas were not in need of any personality to the extent that a cartoonish character was necessary. Given that the pea monster was meant to be a device showing people to wrap the air out of the packaging before restoring in the freezer, another device that is less contentious could serve the same purpose. So the frozen pea packaging is in need of further refinement. The loose apples packaging design was not well accepted. Consumers were confused about whether they had to buy a box when they just wanted one apple. If the box, then there needs to be some further labelling and some handles on the box to indicate that you take the whole box. Consumers thought that this packaging design provided no additional benefit over existing package designs. Consumers like the idea of having an apple a day, but very few buy their apples in that type of serving size, preferring to buy 3 or 4 apples at a time and to buy them more often. The date mark label was consistent with other familiar products and didn't challenge the consumers to think differently about their product or the brand. Consumers felt that once the carry handle was removed, the carrying convenience was also removed, so additional resealability would be needed. They also felt that the apples would bruise in the packaging anyway if not handled properly, so the handle idea lacked credibility overall. The salad bag was also in need of further refinement. The major point of contention was that people are unfamiliar with freshness indicators, and whilst it could double as a seal, people were confused as to the sticker's use. People were also confused about the colour scaling of the freshness indicator, with some people thinking that it was about the temperature and not about the freshness of the produce. The other issue was that there were too many instructions on the package and they would prefer fewer instructions. For example, only one scissor line or a resealable pack with an instruction to compress the pack before resealing, or whatever is appropriate for the produce. The meat and seafood category is made up of all types of fresh and frozen meat and seafood. The category also includes all types of fish. Consumers like the sensory cue reminders for assessing the edibility of the sliced ham. They also liked the resealable adhesive strip. However, they did not like the sense of being judged and would prefer recipe tips and ideas for what to do with slightly over-date or not quite right ham instead. The frozen calamari packaging was liked on all dimensions. The portioning was seen as a great idea so that the pack would be easily split into meal-sized portions, and this would take the guesswork out of deciding how much was enough. The portion size idea was also seen as a way to reduce food safety from defrosting the produce enough so that the right amount can be broken off to cook. Consumers also appreciated the recipe option and would like to see more recipe ideas available. The most liked aspect of the packaging for the minced kangaroo was the portion sizes accompanied by the freshness seal so that each portion could be prepared separately and stored separately. People did feel that the packaging design was self-explanatory, but that is because minced meat is a very generic product that needs little explanation. The storage advice was welcome, however, as some consumers felt that they could already have had been frozen and therefore it was not freezable a second time. The intelligent packaging design attribute of the temperature indicator on the beefsteak packaging had very mixed responses. While people liked the idea, they didn't think it would influence their intentions to consume the steak if it was at its use-by date. Consumers also liked the idea of vacuum packaging of steak and realised that vacuum packaging extends the life of the product. Consumers found the call out about the darker colour of the vacuum-packed meat credible and that they would buy the product as a result. The salmon packaging requires a rethink. None of the attributes suggested for reducing food waste were acceptable to the consumers. Stackability was designed to decrease the likelihood of a single salmon fillet being lost in the back of the refrigerator. However, consumers were not convinced that this would help or that it was necessary. The "Don't Waste Me" message was also contentious, as it was seen as patronising and self-evident. Finally, there needs to be a clearer portion size indicator so that it's clear how many people will be fed from any package design. Thank you for listening to this presentation. The Cooperative Research Program supports industry-led collaborations between industry researchers and the community. The Fight Food Waste Cooperative Research Centre gratefully acknowledges the Australian Government Cooperative Research Centre program, their financial contribution through the Cooperative Researchers Program, as well as the participants of this project. This presentation is copyright to the Fight Food Waste CRC, and we thank you for your attention.